You're watching a Highwire Media podcast.
Welcome to the Dead Reckoning podcast. As always, I'm your host, Larry Lease, and we're finally back with all new episodes. That's right, Dead Reckoning is back. And this week, we dive into the Georgia Guidestones. Not the Georgia, like near Russia, but Georgia, like, in Atlanta, Georgia. And these Guidestones were weird, and no one really knows what they're about. Excuse me. We're all familiar with the concept of some sort of apocalypse happening. In recent, hope not literally, in pop culture, there have been many zombie apocalypses, and humanity has always seemed to make it through to the other end. In zombie movies, there's always like, everyone's destroyed by zombies, but then there's this ragtag group of survivors. But the reality is, like, 99% of humanity has been destroyed by zombies. And probably the rest. Best case scenario, they reach some safe haven they've heard about over radio. They go there and they live out their days in a compound. And that's where it ends, with 99% of humanity dead. That's the reality of zombie movies. Not wanting to jinx anything, we've also had very recent run-ins with highly contagious diseases, but again, so far the majority of the population has survived. But what would happen if there was an event so monumental and civilization as we know it took such a hit that the very foundations of our society would have to be rebuilt almost from scratch? Let's try to do it better this time around, shall we? Because there's a whole lot of stuff that I don't like. I don't think most people like. Let's just try and do a better job, It's like a blank canvas to paint a better society on. Would you know what to do if this happened? Would anyone? There's actually a book. It's called How to Invent Everything, and it's a book about that, basically. It's like explaining the most basic stuff, because most people, there's in the book, no one really knows how to make a pencil. Like the reality is the wood is harvested by one company, then it's made in this little long thing by another company. Another company is working on graphite. The reality is that no one person knows how to make a pencil, which is kind of a problem. And that book explains how you can make a simple pencil. Well, luckily, there are a set of granite stones in a field in Elberton, Georgia, in the United States. They're all the tips you need on how to start rebuilding a society following an apocalyptic event. How much information are you going to get on those stones? This book is relatively thin, and I'm like, yeah, I know, it's mostly like for fun, but it's not going to be super useful as a guide for the end of the world. Elberton, Georgia is known as the granite capital of the world. This is because there's tons and tons of granite. Shocking news there. But also because the granite found there is finer grained and higher quality than the crappy old granite found anywhere else. So if you're looking to build a monument of something that will last, Elberton might be the place to go. You're welcome, Elberton. Next time you can sponsor this show for all the people looking for high quality granite. In 1979, none other than the president of the Elberton Granite Finishing Corporation himself, Joe Finley Sr., was contacted by a mysterious stranger. This stranger was a well-put-together man who said that he represented a group of fellow Americans, all of whom wished to remain anonymous. This group wanted to leave an enduring message for future generations and wanted Elberton both as the source of granite for the project and to act as the actual site for the monument. It makes sense, as otherwise you've got to ship those big granite stones somewhere, which I'm sure is expensive. Sensing a potential nutter in the immediate proximity, Finley gave a ridiculously high quote for the project, assuming that would end the matter. Yeah, I've definitely done that at points where it's like, I really don't want to work with you, but I can't think of a reason. So just quoting like absolute massive prices, and then people are like, oh, okay, thanks. Not really interested anymore. So yeah, you and me both. The stranger surprised him by agreeing to the amount, and Finley's colleague, Wyatt Martin, ended up being nominated as an intermediary agent between this anonymous group and the people actually constructing the piece for them. The stranger gave his name as R.C. Christian, at the time, which was a pseudonym, and even if Wyatt Martin did ever know his real name or who he was, he has publicly sworn that he would never divulge it, even under pain of death. I'd be like, yeah, but really, if you're going to kill me, I'd be like, yeah, it was John. It was John, the granite slab guy. He wanted to build these giant slabs. It's not that big of a secret. After handing over a scale model and finalizing the details of the monument, R.C. Christian swept out of town and never to be seen again. By the following year, the monument was ready to be unveiled. And on the 22nd of March, 1980, the public got their first official view of the mysterious project. And here's what they saw. 4 large rectangular giant slabs were angled around a narrower central granite column. The central column had a slit like a letterbox carved into it, though which a small round hole could be seen. And I'm sure if you're just listening to this show, you're enjoying the picture that we're painting in your mind. Because this show is a podcast, but it's also a YouTube channel. And if you're watching the YouTube channel right now, you're probably getting some glorious images of this, which do a better job than the picture in your mind. I mean, not always. Sometimes the picture in your mind is better. But considering this is a factual thing, the picture on the screen, or I should say behind me, is more accurate. Rectangular capstone sat on top of all 5 upright pieces. A little way off from the monument was another granite slab set into the ground. So what was the big deal? It just sounds like a bunch of old granite. Well, the group behind the stones wanted them to function not only as guidelines for future generations, but also as a calendar and a clock. There were inscriptions all over the slabs, sandblasted in letters 4 inches, 10 centimeters high. Those are some big letters. You're not going to be able to fit much, even on these giant granite stones. The capstones were inscribed with the same message in 4 ancient languages, 1 on each side. The 4 main stones carried inscriptions on both sides. The same messages repeated in 8 different languages. What do these meticulously inscribed letters say? Around each edge of the capstone is a message in Babylonian cuneiform, classical Greek, Sanskrit, and Egyptian hieroglyphics. The message translates to, "Let these be guidestones to an age of reason." And the messages on the 4 main stones were a set of 10. I hesitate to call them rules, but let's call them guidelines. In English, Spanish, Swahili, Hindi, Hebrew, Arabic, Chinese, and Russian. This is something that's going to really confuse future archaeologists in like 1,000 years. They'll be like, wait, why is there ancient Egyptian hieroglyphics in North America? It doesn't make sense. Although I assume by the future they've got way better archaeological techniques, and they're like, yeah, no. Archaeology really got a bit pointless when we invented this device, which could just look into the past. Anyways, these guidelines are inscribed as follows. Number 1, maintain humanity under 500 million in perpetual balance with nature. Wait, like a population under 500 million? It's going to be really difficult because you're eventually going to get to 500 million, and someone's going to be like, oh, don't forget that granite stone said no more people. So we have to wait for people to die now. People are going to be like, dude, seems like there's plenty of space. Number 2, guide reproduction wisely, improving fitness and diversity. Yeah, that sounds a bit like, what's it called? Eugenics? I mean, it does kind of sound like eugenics. Number 3, unite humanity with a living new language. Number 4, rule passion, faith, tradition, and all things with tempered reason. Number 5, protect people and nations with fair laws and just courts. Number 6, let all nations rule internally, resolving external disputes in a world court. Number 7, avoid petty laws and useless officials. Number 8, balance personal rights with social duties. Number 9, prize truth, beauty, love, seeking harmony with the infinite. Number 10, be not a cancer on the earth. Leave room for nature. Leave room for nature. I mean, this all feels a bit, I don't want to say cliche because they are like, okay, great, but it's a bit like dreamy, isn't it? Let all nations rule internally, resolving external disputes in a world court. Yeah, I mean, we tried that, didn't we, with like the League of Nations in the 1920s? Then we had World War II. Didn't work out so well. It's just saying a lot, but not doing a lot, isn't it? Not to worry. We'll come back to these later. The granite slab set into the ground is a useful explanation tablet, giving the date the stones were erected and a guide to the languages used. It also explains the astronomical uses for the guidestone, saying that the oblique cut hole in the central column indicates celestial pole. which appears to mean that you can always see the North Star through it. Okay, this is one of those things where it's like, this is just going to confuse future people because they're like, these messages are on here, but then why are they lining it up with the stars? That feels like very 3,000 years before this was made. So it feels like Stonehenge rather than like modern era. A letterbox-like slot is for tracking the sun, and the monument is oriented so the sun will shine through a slit in the capstone at noon each day. From above, the guidestones are set in an X shape, apparently following the annual journey of the moon. It also handedly gives the physical data for the monument, so no one had to bother getting their measuring sticks out to know the overall height is 19 feet 3 inches. The total weight is 237,746 pounds. The thing is massive. And the whole thing is made up of 951 cubic feet of granite. The weight of each of the big slabs is over 20 tons. There's also other measurements, but I couldn't be bothered converting all those numbers. And of course, you can easily look them up yourselves. The tablet only gave the imperial measurements, by the way, not the metric ones, because as we all know, we're making something for the long distant future. And imperial measurements makes a lot of sense. Said no one ever. Also, the tablet had an inscription relating to a time capsule buried 6 feet below, but the parts showing where it was buried and when it should be dug up are blank, so maybe they didn't get around to it. Or maybe it was someone in the group's idea, but other people thought it was a bit lame to welcome civilization back with a copy of the Daily Albertan Rag, scrambled up Rubik's Cube, and a cassette tape of My Sharona. Yes, and none of that stuff. This thing is clearly made of granite and built to last, like thousands of years. All that stuff will have decayed a really long time ago. And that's pretty cool. It's designed to last like 1,000 years or 70,000 years or something crazy. The other inscription on this highly detailed explanatory tablet states that the sponsors are a small group of Americans who seek the age of reason. Sounds like a lot like you're hoping for the end of the world there, doesn't it? And the author is engraved as R.C. Christian, and underneath in brackets, a pseudonym. Yes, agonizingly on a permanent memorial to the rebuilding of humankind, there is a spelling mistake. It says pseudonym. I didn't even just notice that. But they spelled it wrong. How did no one making this giant granite slab thing realize that it should be an M, not an N? Excuse me. According to the specifications set by the mysterious R.C. Christian, the monument was to be in a remote-ish area, not near any touristy sites. He wanted it to be left in a natural state and accessible to all, so no fences or historic site paraphernalia were to be put up around it. From the moment it was unveiled, people started having opinions about it, with local priests declaring it a symbol of the occult. Alright guys, chill out, it's not that. And others wondering if there were hidden meanings behind the messages. Again, no. It's like the group of people just wanted to leave a nice little message. A nice little slightly cliched message, for future generations after there's been some apocalyptic event. It's not cursed, it's not mysterious, it's just a giant block of granite that someone carved some weird information in it. So in the decades since they were erected, have we found out any more about these mysterious stones that have been referred to as America's Stonehenge? Could the inscriptions maybe hold darker meanings? Why did the anonymous group think these guidelines would even be necessary? Is there devilry afoot? Let's find out. It's just like some weird club and they were like, let's build a weird thing, shall we? Probably some dudes who have too much money because they bought 100,000 kilograms of granite. And I know granite's expensive. I don't have a granite countertop in my kitchen because I was like, well, one, definitely have to break it at some point. I've already broken the one here, and I'm sure it's going to be super, super expensive and hard to fix. So I got some artificial granite thing where you can actually fix it, which is useful because I've already chipped it twice because I'm such a big brain. But these dudes, whoever they are, had a lot of money. On the face of it, the messages on the Guidestones seem pretty straightforward, and the sponsor group declared that people should be totally take them at face value and not try to read into them any more than what they said. However, there was so much speculation about what they might mean that the anonymous group, probably having a deep sigh, had to publish a list of explanatory precepts in order that the message for the future wasn't twisted or misinterpreted in any way. We'll go into what these guidelines are supposed to mean in greater detail in a minute, but first I think we should talk about why these guidestones were created. The crew behind the stones had fears for the future and wanted to ensure that should anything happen, there was a list of points on how to do it right next time. Depending on how far you're talking about into the future, though, I always want to just come back to the idea of the world court, right? Or any of those precepts. Really, it's just, there's so much of a problem with this. Like, if you go, who knows, however long into the future, people are going to ask, what's a court? Who's going to know what a court is? Maybe it'd be like, I wonder what this court thing was. No one knows. No one could possibly know. It could be like nations. What are nations? We all live in peaceful harmony, according to R.C. Christian. According to Christian, the stones and messages had been 20 years in the planning, meaning that worries about future world wars and nuclear annihilation were probably the motives that kick-started the idea for the monument. It's so sad that at some point, just because time is, it goes on forever, basically. At some point, there's going to be some other major war that's going to kill billions or hundreds of millions of people. And the whole of the world is going to get all screwed up. And all sorts of old stuff going to get destroyed. And there's going to be like more genocide. I mean, not that genocides aren't going on, but there's going to be like some other turbo genocide. And it's going to be, depressing. And I like the fact that I'm 30 plus right now. And I like the fact that my parents are like 70s. And we haven't lived through anything like crazy. I mean, there's been wars and stuff. But we haven't lived through anything, majorly, crazy like the world wars and whatnot. Grandparents and stuff, they were born at the tail end. I don't know how old my grandparents are. They're like 90s, 97, I think. So yeah, I mean, they lived through some crazy times. I remember my grandma talking about rationing and stuff, and it's just like, yeah, I'm glad they had to live through that and not us. And I hope that my children and children's children don't have to. But the reality is that at some point, like, grandchildren are like going to have to go off and fight in some sort of war and probably die. And I'm like, that's really depressing because I like my kids. I don't want or I should say, I don't have kids, but I do. I like my kids and I don't want their kids or kids' kids to have to go because it will be sad. Obviously, war is depressing. Just carry on. The group was worried about a nuclear event so large that civilization would have to be rebuilt from the ground up. A nuclear war definitely fits into that category. Another reason for the stone's placement in Elberton was that it was off the beaten track and likely to survive a missile strike due to being pretty much in the middle of nowhere. All that granite under the ground would also make it a more stable place to build a long-lasting monument in case of a natural disaster. So this group of like-minded, presumably rich Americans decided to bestow their wisdom upon the poor people who were left scrambling to rebuild society after the world ended. So let's get back to those messages and the explanations given for them. Some of them are very specific, others are a bit more vague, so it seems like that's some or all of them were written by different people. It does feel pretty disjointed, so it feels like, everyone chipped in a bit and got to come up with a rule. Now, if you break any of these rules, you can't sit with us at lunch. Maybe everyone in the group got to have their own guideline passed down forever, and that's why they seem a bit inconsistent. So here are the guidelines again, followed by their explanatory precepts. Number 1, maintain humanity under 500 million in perpetual balance with nature. And then the explanatory quote was, means the entire human race at its climax level for permanent balance with nature. Well, the explanatory note means less than the actual thing on the stone, which I guess is good. We all know that the planet is groaning under the weight of humans, and we're really cooking up the place as far as living with nature goes, but 500 million people? Even in 1980, the population was nudging 4.5 billion. It's so crazy that we basically doubled that since 1980. I know it's only going to get faster and faster, but it's so crazy. And also, I feel like, I know even, I even live in a city, but I'm like, it doesn't feel very crowded. And then you go out into the countryside and you're like, there's no one here. This is actually kind of nice. Excuse me. According to worldometers.info, the world's population hasn't been as low as 500 million since the 1600s. So who knows why they decided on that number? 1600s were great. Wasn't that when there was that big plague? While there is no denying that a mass extinction event of humans would be great for the planet, this guideline seems a bit strict. And really, who's going to be checking on how many people there are when 95% of the human race has been snuffed out? What happens if the population accidentally pops over the line? Well, obviously you got to kill them. It's going to be an annual, you know. When taken with subsequent messages on the stones, this piece of advice starts to take on a darker tone. Number 2, guide reproduction wisely, improving fitness and diversity. Explanatory note, without going into details as yet undiscovered, this means humanity should apply reason, knowledge to guiding its own reproduction. Fitness could be translated as health. Diversity could be translated as variety. Like I said before, this just sounds straight like eugenics, right? Like selective breeding of humans. Well, thanks for the lesson on how to use the thesaurus, anonymous American person, and way to dodge a bullet by adding diversity to the guideline. Although the explanation sort of narrows this down a bit with the word variety. Diversity implies to broaden the genetic pool as much as possible by reproducing with other races. Variety, to my mind, means, for example, different hair color within the same racial group. Diversity seems like a more clear word other than variety, which is generally not applied when talking about this stuff. It's all very weird, isn't it? Also, if humanity's taken such a hit that it's been reduced to practically nothing, probably pretty slim pickings out there for who you might want to start repopulating the planet with. Yes, we seem to be edging around the murky world of eugenics here, and it definitely bears pointing out that during the inception of this granite monument, forced sterilizations of people deemed mentally unfit were being carried out all over the United States. And minorities, such as Native Americans, were still being sterilized against their will into the 1970s. Which is insane, America. Not just America. Let's just go with humanity in general. Like, what the fuck are you up to? And then, number 3, unite humanity with a living new language. Okay, I hope they clarify what a living language is, because aren't all languages living? It's not like, yeah, Latin. Okay, great. So let's not do Latin or any of the other dead languages. Let's use a language that can evolve. Which language does all the time? Okay, well, they are explaining it, and they're explaining is, quote, living language grows and changes with advancing knowledge. A new language will be developed and need not necessarily be adapted from any languages now in existence. These people sound like the person who wants you to think they're smarter than they actually are, but then someone with reasoning goes, it's a bit stupid, isn't it? But hey, at least this one's a little less contentious. Okay, so we've got a bunch of people living all over the place, speaking different languages. What does one do? Well, refer to the guidelines and just make up a whole new language that somehow everyone will be able to learn. Sounds hard. It does, and it's been tried before with Esperanto. I think if humanity's down to the bare bones, people are just going to stay where they are and continue using the language of the people that they now live with. Yeah, it's like, oh my god, the world's been destroyed by nuclear war. Fortunately, we've got these guidestones to guide us to a better thing. And they say that we should just be learning a new language. So we'll be like, yo, how about we just speak English? Because these other languages we have to worry about, like, radiation, food, shelter, basic survival. But the guidelines say new language, Jeff. I always like to give my people character names like Peter and Jeff and John. If a stranger turns up, what usually happens? They learn the language of the people they now live with. And it's not like languages will be wiped off the map. I'm sure there'll be some people left with knowledge of more than one, and we have Google Translate. But I suppose it would make sense for everyone that's left to be able to communicate. So a new language seems smart, but how do you start it though? And how to work with all the grammars, etc. And I'll leave that to the future survivor people. Emojis, anybody? Yeah, I mean, this is such a pointless entry on there. Rule 3 is just stupid. Number 4, rule passion, faith, tradition, and all things with tempered reason. Okay, that's super generic. And the explanation? Faith here may be used in a religious sense. Too often people are ruled by blind faith, even when it may be contrary to reason. Yeah, okay. Reason must be tempered with compassion here, but must prevail. So just be reasonable. So everyone just has to calm down and be reasonable. I don't really have a problem with this one. Although some people's interpretation of what they think is reasonable is going to be the exact opposite of other people's. This particular guideline, with its emphasis on reason, is one of the central tenets of this group's beliefs, which we'll get into in more detail later on. Number 5, protect people and nations with fair laws and just courts. Courts must consider justice as well as the law. I mean, that's what courts do now. It's like, yeah, okay, the law's there, and it's interpreted by the courts. Isn't that what justice is? Isn't that what law is? It's like you go there and you make an argument, and then if the law seems dumb, either, I don't know, for, obviously in America, the courts change the law, like Supreme Court, stupid law. Or the courts will interpret it in a way that basically changes it, okay, well, this previous case that we should go on, it's from a higher court, or the same court or whatever, says this, but like we're going to just, interpret it a little bit differently so that justice prevails, because that's fair. Doesn't that explanation make it sound like the courts can just do whatever they want? I mean, yeah, and to a large extent, courts do find ways to do what they want. And it usually is fair because courts are generally fair, I think. People have been wrong generally want justice over and above everything else. So it sounds like courts in the future will have carte blanche to dole out whatever punishments they want, regardless of the law. It also seems, I don't know, I think this is open to interpretation, which I mean, when you're making rules for a future society, I guess it's something you probably don't want, but you definitely allowed it. Also seems that in the future post-apocalyptic world, nations have remained and are going to get into arguments with other nations. Yay. Number 6, let all nations rule internally, resolving external disputes in a world court. Individual nations must be free to develop their own destinies at home as their own people wish, but cannot abuse their neighbors. Wait a second. But aren't you just making these granite stones telling everyone what to do? What are you up to? I thought the immediate concern after an apocalyptic event would be to get the place up and running again. Would all the tiny amount of people want to stay within the limits of their own pre-existing conditions? Or nations, I mean? Nope, we talked about this. When the zombie apocalypse hits, you listen to the ham radio and you're like, there's, you listen for signals. People have set up camp somewhere. They've got a big wall, and they've got guns and food and fresh water, and the zombies are at their gate. And eventually they get over the gate and they overrun the camp, and our band of survivors will escape. I don't know where I'm pulling this from, but I'm guessing it's like every zombie movie ever, or post-apocalyptic movie. Would countries even really exist anymore? Surely some populations would be almost totally annihilated, but the survivors have got to keep up. But have got to keep it all local while also learning a new global language at the same time. Don't forget, setting up a brand new legal system, and depending on what resources the countries have remaining to them, you know that some of them are going to develop way more quickly than others. I mean, can't we all just get along? Would be nice, probably not going to happen though. And number 7, avoid petty laws and useful officials. And the explanation is self-explanatory. And yes, we'll probably succeed at that at the beginning, but then let me introduce you to the world of inevitable bureaucracy. The explanation says it all. I bet this person had a specific useless official in mind when they submitted this guideline. Yes, oh my god, useless officials, useless people. I can imagine the guy who came up with this one, and he's like, God damn person at City Hall, I'm making this rule just for you. Everybody hopes to avoid useless officials, so at least there's something to look forward to in the desolate, blasted future world. Number 8, balance personal rights with social duties. I mean, obviously. Interestingly, something that we're dealing with right now, it's like you young people like myself, I mean, not obviously, but it seems like my risk of COVID basically fairly minimal because I'm a healthy, relatively young guy. Risk of COVID jab, also extremely minimal because I'm a healthy young man, but there's also kind of like about the same risk. So it's like, why would I intentionally get a vaccine? It's like, well, because I'm not a piece of, and I want to do my part for society that I live in so that I don't get sick and then pass it all onto some old person that I kill. But mostly because I'm not a piece of crap. So go get a vaccine if you want. Oh my God, some people are going to be smashing that dislike button. They'll be like, hey, I'm a sovereign citizen. Wait, hang on. Let me put on my appropriate voice. I'm a sovereign citizen. I will do as I please with my body. It's given to me by Jesus. Okay, chill out. Do your thing, do your bit for humanity. I'm a bit confused why these guidelines want to push people to work for a greater good, yet still remain insular and within their own nations. Probably because different people wrote each guideline. I don't really know whether the ethos of the sponsor group or the individuals within it are making their differing beliefs shown. Whatever the case, there's no denying that pulling together after a crisis is preferable to going it alone, especially if you're like me, where my best chance of survival would be definitely dependent on being in a larger group. It's like, one, I live in a city. Two, I don't have any means of defending myself because I don't have any fighting skills. I don't own a gun. So I guess I'd have to get a gun. But it's like, nah, I'm joking. I'll be finding a group ASAP who has guns and then hopefully giving me one. And or hopefully not, just protecting me. I'll be like, what skills do you have, Simon? What do you bring to the group? It's like, I got a good knowledge of random facts. There's no electricity. We could sit down in the evening. I could read you stories. Please don't leave me. Preferably with people who can cook. Yeah, I'm not a brilliant cook. Even though I can cook, I'm not a brilliant cook. So, number 9, prize truth, beauty, love, seeking harmony with the infinite. Whoever wrote this is a hippie who somehow got rich. The explanation? The infinite here means the supreme being. The infinite here means the supreme being whose will is manifest in the workings of the cosmos, if we will seek for it. Oh my God, who let this guy in the rich people group? How did you get rich, hippie? I won the lotto, okay? Get out. Come on, but we need your money, lotto guy, okay? Who let hippie Charlie have a guideline? Doesn't this contradict guideline 4 about ruling everything with tempered reason? So number 10, be not a cancer on the earth, leave room for nature, leave room for nature. Did they really need to repeat? I just assumed maybe it was a mistake, but no. They really appear to have written, leave room for nature, twice. Dude, you're literally carving into granite. It's like, the guy who's carving this has got to be like, really, dude? Did we need to do that? Did we? Really? Come on. The explanation is, in our time, the growth of humanity is destroying the natural conditions of the earth, which have fostered all existing life. We must restore reason balance. Well, I know it's bad and stuff. Humanity, we're really screwing up the planet. I saw something the other day, it was about Europe, and it was like, there was just, I can't remember the figures or anything, but it was about the amounts of CO2 that we need to be consuming, to sustain Earth and not fuck it up more than we already have. It was like this tiny little sliver, and then it was like actual consumption of CO2 by people in Europe, and it was massive. And I was just like, oh my God, we're fucked. We're so screwed. What I want to do, and I kind of feel bad for not done it yet, is join one of those things where you carbon offset your life, because I don't know, I'm not probably going to buy I'll get an electric car, but right now the parking bay doesn't have a charger near my house. Because honestly, just offsetting is easier than reducing my carbon emissions, because I love steak, and I like driving a car, and I like flying places. And I will happily pay more to be able to do those things. And is it really that simple? Seems like way too easier of a solution. There are references to it all over the Guidestones. The inscription on the capstone is, let these be Guidestones to an age of reason. And the sponsors are described as a small group of Americans who seek the age of reason. What was I going to say? The reason I went on the whole tangent, and I totally forgot what my whole point was. Oh, yeah. We're really screwing up the environment now. But by the time these guidestones come into place from like some nuclear apocalypse or anything, everyone's going to be like, and we are worried about carbon dioxide now? The whole world's eradicated. Brilliant. I had welcomed carbon dioxide back into my life. But what does it mean? The reason thing. What does it mean? It seems that this group has a bee in its bonnet about human overpopulation. But reasonable people would not demand rigid population control to confront that. That's what unreasonable people would do. It's also not clear. I haven't thought about this opinion very much at all, but it also does seem that, okay, let's not call it reasonable immediately. Let's say a method of, reducing carbon emissions is population control, because obviously the most carbon heavy event that you can population control, a reasonable way to control like climate change, and I mean, kind of is. We should all be better with our carbon thing, but the best thing you can do is not have like 7 kids, because they're all going to use a lot. They're all going to make a lot of carbon dioxide. It's also not clear why leave room for nature is repeated. And I'm not saying we should kill everyone, by the way. I'm just saying maybe we should have less kids. Is it to underline the importance of the message? Or did the stonemason accidentally keep chipping away, so ended up doing the whole sentence again? This one more or less says the same thing as Guidelines 1 and 9, but it's delivered in a more biblical Ten Commandments way than either of the other two. Judging by what little we know about the group who sponsored the Georgia Guidestones, we can make a few deductions. Okay, assumptions. They were all American. This is stated in the explanatory tablet. At least some of them were very wealthy. The group was quoted a silly amount to get the monument built, and they accepted the price without haggling. Maybe this also means R.C. Christian in particular was a bit dim or trusting. Let's go with trusting, or alternatively, just so rich he doesn't care. They're like, this is the price, and they're like, okay, I guess. It's like that thing where what was it on Ellen or something, where Bill Gates, the people ask him how much something costs. Like, it's just like, what is the price of banana? $5, and Ellen is like 32 cents or whatever. It's like just his guesses are so widely wrong. And I mean, I totally get it. I'm not even sure how much a banana costs, and I'm not Bill Gates. The overall impression given by the messages and the enterprise in general smacks of a group of wealthy white American men generously bestowing their largesse on the world in the form of their 10 wise commandments. I'm more than happy to be proved wrong on this point, but come on, it's true. The only real lead we have to identify the group is the pseudonym R.C. Christian. It's pretty on the nose. Either it was an obvious allusion to his religious beliefs, the total opposite, and it was ironically used by an atheist, or shock, or a Satanist. I feel this is quite an atheistic thing, so I would guess it's more an irony. Like they've done the name, then they've done their 10 commandments. It's like, okay, chill out. Onlookers at the unveiling were swift to decry the Guidestones as satanic, but I'm not really sure why. They don't really have any bad messages. They're all like, they're cliche, but they're not bad messages. Maybe they thought they were blasphemous alternatives to the 10 Commandments, or the astrological aspects inherent in the monuments meant that it was automatically occult somehow. It's been speculated that R.C. Christian is a thinly veiled reference to the Rosicrucians, apologies for butchering that name, a movement that sprang up in the 1600s and whose manifesto referred to a universal reformation of mankind. The central figure of this movement is the belief that its members possess secret wisdom that was handed down to them from ancient times. Okay, sounds like a conspiracy theory. The Guidestones even kind of resemble the Rose Cross, so maybe these 20th century members thought they should quickly pass on their secret knowledge before humanity accidentally destroyed itself. A lot of big names from the past have been linked to the Rosicrucian movement, including Jefferson, Washington, Thomas Paine. Paine has been widely credited with helping to inspire American revolutionaries, particularly with his pamphlet entitled Common Sense. In 1794, he released part 1 of a pamphlet called The Age of Reason. Excuse me. This does cover a lot of the ground that the Guidestones expose and comes under the umbrella of deism, which is, according to dictionary.com, an intellectual movement of the 17th and 18th centuries that accepted the existence of a creator on the basis of reason, but rejected the belief in a supernatural deity who interacts with humankind. Rosicrucianism, if I'm pronouncing that correctly, which I'm probably not, pulled ideas from all over the place, including occultism and Christian Gnosticism. And some scholars are not even sure that it really existed at all, or if it was some sort of hoax. The movement does exist today through with the, I'm just going to call it the R Fellowship, coming with the tagline, an association of Christian mystics. Another sponsor of the Guidestones, or maybe R.C. Christian himself, has always thought to be Ted Turner. Turner was an American billionaire, media tycoon, entrepreneur, and philanthropist. A brief look at his CV is quite telling. Turner is the chairman of the United Nations Foundation and the co-chairman and founder of the Nuclear Threat Initiative. He also created a foundation in his own name to address issues about population growth. Prior to launching CNN in 1980, he created a so-called doomsday video of military bands performing Near My God to Thee to be broadcast whenever the end of the world came. Ted Turner, a little bit pessimistic there, aren't you, buddy? He also grew up in Georgia and is a big nature lover. So it does seem to be a good call. The anonymity clause has held since 1979, so I don't think anyone is about to break it now. While the messages were seemingly written in good faith and were meant to be taken literally, conspiracy theories, of course, still sprung up. The stones have been vandalized many times over the years, with graffiti saying things like "Death to the New World Order," "I am Isis, goddess of love." Bits have been chipped off, and also in 2014, somebody replaced a chipped off bit with a new cube with mysterious letters and numbers engraved onto it. People went wild with numerology theories and references to what it might mean, until the man responsible spoke up saying that he had carved his and his wife's initials and their anniversary of their wedding date into it. So, if you find yourself on the other side of an apocalypse and need to work out how to rebuild society according to a group of wealthy white men from the 70s in North America, where else would you go for information? Well, now you know where to find the answers. Good luck, future humans. Good luck. Yes, and that is the end of today's episode of Dead Reckoning. The mystery, of course, is who made them, but also, who cares? Before we go, we'd like to thank our sponsor, NordVPN. Today's episode was brought to you by NordVPN, the fastest and most reliable VPN service out there. Let's be real, the internet isn't always the safest place, whether it's hackers on public Wi-Fi, creepy advertisers tracking your every move, or streaming services locking content by region. Your online activity isn't as private as you think, and that's where NordVPN comes in. With just one click, NordVPN encrypts your data and keeps you safe, whether you're at home, work, or connected to sketchy airport Wi-Fi. And the best part? You can unlock shows and movies from around the world by changing your virtual location. Want to stream that series only available in the UK? No problem. NordVPN makes it happen in seconds. I've been using NordVPN myself, and the speed is incredible. No lag, no buffering, just secure, private browsing. So join today and get 72% off with 3 free months. Use the link in the description today and join and protect your internet. And with that, thank you so much for watching and listening. If you want to support the channel, you can buy us a coffee at buymeacoffee.com. Larry M. Lace. It's buymeacoffee.com/Larry M. Lace. As always, thank you so much for watching and listening. We'll see you next time.